Hi, I'm Katie Armstrong. I lead Flying High English Hub, and welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today, we're thinking about the challenges that schools face and how we can find solutions for these. I'm joined today by two of our most experienced LS, Kath and Gemma. Ladies, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Kath Wilkes. I'm English Lead Practitioner for the Flying High Partnership, as well as literacy specialist for the English Hub.
And you've been with the Hub right from when we started being
right
a Hub, haven't you?
from
So you've got
the
lots
very
of experience.
beginning, about 6 years ago now, I think. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gemma Goff. I'm a literacy specialist for the Flying High English Hub. I previously was reading lead at Greenwood Primary School, and we were actually a partner school with the English Hub about 5-6 years ago.
Lovely. And then you've got into this role, which is fabulous, that you can then bring that experience and share it with the schools that you work with.
Yeah, I think that's because I could see the value of the work that the Hub does. So yeah.
Lovely. So today we're thinking about the challenges that schools face. We know we've got a lot. Like most people in most walks of life, schools are feeling the financial pinch at the moment. So we've got less money available for staffing and for resources. So we know that's an issue. And particularly that seems to be impacting the teaching assistants we have in schools. We've also got increased numbers of children with SEND coming through mainstream schools that people might not feel they've got the expertise to make sure that they get what they need. So there are lots of challenges coming our way as schools. So if we sort of think about them one at a time and sort of share the experiences that you've had in schools of how we've addressed these, because we know when we go in, our strategies in English Hub is that we hear the school's challenge and we use our knowledge to be solution focused. So let's start with that lack of adults. So we've either got less adults in school, and I know I've worked with some schools that have had restructuring and they've had to have redundancies, they've got less TAs in the building, who are fabulous. I mean, I've worked with some fabulous TAs that really support the children, and we know they're worth the weight in gold. So for schools that have got less adults, how can we address that? We need to make sure that children are getting the support they need, and schools aren't thinking, well, I haven't got a TA, that can't happen. So what do we do to make sure that the children get what they need so they can all learn to read?
I think first and foremost, it's actually looking at your lessons and getting that high quality first teaching. And that's kind of what we do when we support a partner school. That's the first area for development, really. We look at lessons and actually are the lessons as good as they can be? Are they showing fidelity to this scheme? Are they consistent across classes? Are we making sure that we're reducing the cognitive load so that the children really can focus on the learning and the phonics? I think that's number one.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a really good investment for schools, isn't it? Using your reading leader time to support class, that first offer for all children. The more right you can get it, the more correct that is, the less of the other, the intervention and the support that you might need to implement. So it's really worth investing reading leader time to support class teachers, people who are teaching groups of phonics.
And that's what we do on our literacy support days, isn't it? That we go in and we coach alongside the reading lead and make sure we've got that high quality first teaching for every child. Like I say, if that's right, you've got less children that need interventions. So that's the first thing we need to do.
Yeah.
What else?
Absolutely.
I think in terms of adults, it's, and there being less of them, for those children that do need that extra practice, it's, I suppose, being a bit creative with your timetables. So, sometimes there might have been, across the key stage, there might have been an adult in every class, whereas now we're seeing more and more, there's one adult across a whole key stage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And maybe assigned to a particular child, so not able to help in the way that they would have done in the past.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more limited, and I think it's probably going to carry on that way. I mean, you said about being creative. It's tricky, isn't it? Because it's like, right, we don't have these extra people, so let's see who we have got and when. So is it possible during assemblies, for example, that we could kind of flood an age group with support and let's see if we can target individual children at that point, or smaller groups of children. Is it, I think, were you saying one of your schools used a before school, after school?
Yeah, so a few schools actually, where children that attend Breakfast Club anyway, in particular for those interventions or for the daily reads to get that extra practice, targeting those children, getting the people who are leading the Breakfast Club trained up so they know what they're doing. and actually getting them there. They're at school anyway. So utilising kind of every minute of the day.
Yeah, at school I was
Absolutely,
supporting
yeah.
actually put a special breakfast club on just for phonics intervention and invited particular children, come and have some toast, we're going to do a little bit of phonics and then we'll get you into school.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and at a school I was working with just last week, you know, you use that phrase, let's be creative, but it's you have to really look at the nuts and bolts of what's possible. So we were really short of people. So it's like, right, what can we do? And we went to speak to the head and talk to the head, and she had remembered a member of the lunchtime staff that had asked if she could get more involved. I think ultimately she would like to perhaps train as a TA, but she's in the building every day at lunchtime. So they've arranged for her to come earlier before lunch every day, and she's going to stay after lunch every day.
Fab.
And they're going to work with her and train her. Now at the moment she's going to be reading with children. She's not doing intervention as such, but that's what they're planning to build up.
It's
to.
still that extra practice,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
That has
Absolutely.
reminded me, actually, I've worked in a school where they employed all the dinner ladies. So they got them trained up, and they were doing it during the lunchtime as well. So
Yeah.
And in terms of school budgets being tighter, they are one of the less expensive members of the team.
Yeah.
So it's great if they're willing to stay extra and do a bit more. It's not going to impact on your
Absolutely.
budget too much as it is employing an extra teacher or something.
And I think as well, if schools look really carefully at which children, you know, who will cope with that other adult who isn't your teacher or isn't your TA. And if they're not going to, then don't, but do it with the children that can.
I think sometimes
Yeah.
it can go the other way as well, because actually there'll be quite often dinner ladies are, you know, people from within the community, aren't they? And actually there are some children that then respond almost better to that and have that relationship. So it's carefully selecting, isn't it?
Who matching up and pairing up for success. Because I think as well what sits beneath that as well is making sure you're absolutely accurate with which children and what they need and why. So is your assessment spot on?
Yeah.
Do you really know who needs what? Because this is so tight. It's tight for money, it's tight for time, it's tight for people. So we've got to make sure that we're doing the right thing with that little window that we've got. And then again, it's back to the reading lead. You know, who is looking at that? Who's checking that? What we don't want to do is go all term and go, oh, that didn't really work. Actually, who's checking in? Who's making sure that this is as best it can be in the time that we've got and having the impact that it needs to have.
So one of the things that I know schools struggle with in terms of adults is when your programme needs children to be taught in groups or to read in groups, and that's happening every day. And they're saying, well, we can't run this because we haven't got the adults, so we're going to do it differently. And they're losing the fidelity to the programme. Yeah. How are schools managing that where they need adults for different groups?
I think what you briefly mentioned before, you know, that flood approach, particularly, you know, in a large primary school, if you've got Key Stage 2, quite often they have a different lunchtime or playtime. So actually utilising any additional adults that are in Key Stage 2 and getting them all down at the same time into Key Stage 1 and Foundation to get that reading group done for all the children at the same time, rather than trying to timetable however many groups over so many days with only one or two adults. So that's worked well in a few schools I've worked in.
Yeah, and I mean that's when you need that leadership look at things, don't you? Because it's timetabling and it's so crucial, because you say, right, for half an hour this is what's happening, and then we'll go back to do. And that is the very nature of when we say be creative. That's what we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's having that whole school view of it, isn't it? It's not just me and my year one class, how are we going to make this work? But actually from a strategic level, what adults have we got? We know we're prioritising reading as a school, so we need to get it right for our youngest children. How can we use all the moving parts? And I think it goes back to that what one of you mentioned earlier about it's not about having one adult in one class and it's being they're my TA and we work together. It's actually the TA is for all the children and how we work across school.
Another thing that some schools do, I think, in terms of, you know, getting that extra daily read, because we want them practicing daily to build that fluency, is timetabling just a 10-minute slot where the whole class have got their decodable reading book out, practicing, so you know they're getting that daily read. And if if it is only the teacher in there, but actually they're getting in with those children that they know they need to prioritise and target.
Yeah,
that's
and
worked well.
It was the school again that I was in last week. That's exactly what they've done, and the staff were saying it already feels like a huge relief, because they knew that they were not getting the time to do that, and they knew it was needed. So desperately we're trying, but now they have this slot in every school day, and they know that they can work with different targeted children in that time, and they've said it's like.
I think what's brilliant with that as well is so a lot of schools use the approach where they're reading that book in school for a week, so then by the time it goes home on the Friday they can read it. So actually for those children that might not get the support at home, they can then access that reading book because they've practiced it in school.
They don't
and
need
actually
scaffold alongside.
So they are more likely to get it out and read on their own, or read to an elder sibling or their dog or whatever, but as long as they're getting that practice.
And that any reading minutes builds and supports, doesn't it? So should that book then go home, the job is done. We're not relying on people at home to do it for us. They've had that time, but finding that time is really hard, so that's a great way of doing it, so that children have that time.
So we've thought about extra practice in school, obviously mentioning at home there. How can we enable our parents to be partners so that they know how to support their child and what they can do?
Yeah, I mean, this time of the year you quite often see a lot of schools inviting parents in so that they can understand the approach, what's helpful, what's unhelpful when you're listening to children read. So I know in some of our schools, because we do exactly what you've just described, Gemma, which is support children over the week, the book goes home as a book that they can read, and they can read fluently. And actually, for some families, that's new news. They're expecting a bit more of a struggle. So in some of our schools, we've had parents saying this book's too easy. And actually it's not. This book is right. We're sending them home reading it. We're not sending them home. Absolutely. And in some of our schools, we've really had to communicate that with parents. Can I explain to you why this book isn't easy and why it is worth spending the time? So we've had, we'll come to it in a minute, the issue around children who don't read at home, and maybe what we can do to support families and engaging with that process. But then if we have the flip side of that is we've had some families saying, I'm not going to read that book with them, it's too easy. And it's like just explaining and communicating why it isn't easy, it's at the right level for them, and it will help them to develop that automaticity, and explaining what that is and why that's important. So I think that meeting at this point in the year is crucial for sort of setting out your stall in that way.
And getting parents just to have that understanding means they know what to do. I think sometimes, and my husband was the same, he didn't want to do the wrong thing, so it was easier not to do it than get it wrong and make it difficult for the children. But also I think a lot of us as parents weren't taught phonics at school. So it's a completely alien concept and we don't know how it works. So having that, like I said, that set your stall out of this is how it works, this is how we teach reading at our school, parents feel that they can support. And then if you have got a child that's struggling and you've got less adults in school, we do what we can. But if the parents know how to support, they can also do a little bit at home if they choose
Absolutely. A couple of our schools have sent, have a QR code for parents with a little video link to it, where an adult in school is reading with the child and what that looks like. They also invite parents in to watch, but sometimes the parents you'd really like to come and watch don't or can't. So actually they were sort of layering it up. Okay, we're inviting parents in. Sometimes they do it on the back of something else. While you're here, straight in. But also, we're all great on our phones, aren't we? So when that goes home on, through the school website or through
like your class dojo or something
then you can access it through QR code if you want to really understand how to do it. So but in terms of where it's more challenging with families that don't read with their children at home, again I think there's two sides to that, and one being what we then do in school to support, because that's going to be a gap, isn't it, for the children? But also, how do we, encourage families to become involved in that?
And I think what you've just said, that the school that you mentioned where they you know, they invited them in for something else and then tagged that reading or that intervention on the end of it. That's worked well in one of the schools I've supported. And they actually tagged it on the end of, I think they were presenting their vehicles, and actually the parents will go for that because it's non-threatening. And actually the children really want to show them the vehicles they've made. Oh, but whilst you're here, we're just going to talk to you. We're just going to show you. So I think sometimes it's almost tricking them into it.
It is. And also, if you think, you know, without making any sweeping sort of generalisations, sometimes it's parents that might not have had a positive experience of reading themselves, either as a child or even as an adult. So if you then say, can you come in for this reading meeting? I mean, that's really intimidating, isn't it, potentially? You know, what might they ask me to do? Whereas actually, if you're feeling safer about the situation, you can mention it in a non-threatening way. I mean, a lot of our teachers, particularly of younger children where parents are picking up and dropping off, when you've got the relationship with the families, you have that word at the door, and it's a lot less of a thing. I was watching in one of our schools recently, one of the early years teachers who just had really great relationships with parents. And she would say, I'm looking in the book bag there. It's not there. Oh, I know you only live across the field. Go and get that book and then we can sign it. So, you know, that is, you know, it's not as much as a meeting, is it? But it's enough to say, I'm looking in there every day and we need that book in there. And it was really lovely to see, actually, once you have that relationship with your families, that you can encourage in that way.
And I think that's it. You've hit the nail on the head there. It is building relationships, isn't it? So I think actually, even before you're getting them in to show them an intervention or show them how to listen to the child read, that actually just have those family events. So whether you have a breakfast morning or a coffee afternoon, just getting parents into school to begin with, to build those relationships so you can build that trust before you start hammering them with the other stuff.
Absolutely. And, you know, quite often our work is around the youngest children in school, so it's their first experience as parents of school since maybe they were at school. And if that wasn't a positive experience, then actually you can see why there's this kind of rift, can't you? So,
definitely.
You know, it's really...
It's how we can change that view of school for them, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And just understanding the impact of not being able to do this and how that figures in your wider, you know, life chances from that point. So
it's imperative that we get all these children to learn to read.
Absolutely, absolutely,
So we've thought about being creative with adults, how we can be creative with timetables and making sure that the children are getting what they need once they've had that high quality first teaching that everybody's entitled to, how we can get parents on board and supporting at home as well. What about in terms of resources? We know, obviously, flashcards and things are used every day. They often get a bit dog-eared. Books go home, they don't always come back. Sometimes they get water bottles spill and we run out. How can schools make sure that they've got everything they need to deliver that high-quality first teaching that we know they need?
They can request an audit from the Flying High English Hub. So obviously the funding that we offer alongside that kind of partner school route is a real bonus.
Yeah, it's a real boost, isn't it?
So, you know, schools are able to then like top up decodable reading books, resources.
And it's so much needed, isn't it? Because it's not finite. You know, you know, books wear out. Flashcards wear out.
Yeah, they do.
You know, particularly if you're using them. So, you know, we teach children to care for them. We teach staff to care for them. But actually, a well-used book will...
And I think as well, that's the biggest challenge in terms of children taking home those right books. If you've not got enough books and you've only got so many of each, then actually sometimes it's a case of, oh, well, I've had to give them that because we haven't got... else. So it's having enough, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, some of our schools are really creative around fundraising, you know, how they use... I think some of our schools have found that their fundraising is more impactful if parents and families know exactly what it's for. Some of our schools have, you know, PTA parents groups that get involved. And actually they said if they know that they are contributing to this or these books for this age group or what, they're more inclined to...
rather than just general school funds.
It's gone. Absolutely. So that, you know, that is... another way. I know using book fairs people can use
Yeah.
money from that. I know that's not always your decodables, is it? But it is actually getting more books in the building
Yeah.
when you need them, and then maybe then freeing up some funds so that you can replace phonic resources for the programme or decodable books.
Yeah.
You know, it is an ongoing challenge, isn't it?
So it's something that I think as SLT we need to plan in for as well, that we
Yeah.
know we're going to need
Yeah.
regular updates
Yeah.
of phonics resources, reading for pleasure books. So we need to have a little pot put aside. But you're right, any funding they can access from the English Hub up to £6,000 is a lot of money
It
that
is.
schools could
Yeah.
access. Particularly if they need that online subscription as well for their programme. That's an
Yeah.
annual
That's-
cost, so we need
Yeah.
that money ready,
Yeah.
don't
And I
we?
think that's what schools need to consider if they are at that stage of choosing which phonics programme.
Or looking to change.
Yeah.
It's not a one-stop, is it? It's not
Yeah.
a we've done it once.
I think a lot of people don't realise that there is that annual subscription.
Yeah, there's ongoing
and how
costs.
costly.
And without it, you know, you will struggle to keep that fidelity to the programme
Yeah.
and supporting new colleagues and people who are new to that age group. You know, you do need that constant funding. And actually, I've seen in some of our schools where, you know, the business manager is involved in that. They do know that needs budgeting for. So how much are we putting aside to order these decodable books? How much are we putting aside for the workbooks
Yeah.
for this programme? What is it that we absolutely need to
Yeah.
do? And, you know, making sure those resources are there for the time you need them.
Yes.
You know, so sometimes it's like, oh, we haven't got the flashcards yet, but they're coming. Well,
Yeah.
we need
I need them to teach
Yeah.
the lesson.
We need them,
Yeah.
yeah. And actually, that's why it's on everyone to look after them. Sometimes it's really hard, even as a grown-up in school, isn't it, to focus the putting away again. And then you go to get your set of cards and think there's some missing in here. And they might be in this
But it is absolutely
space or
key.
this.
It kind of takes us back full circle, doesn't
Yeah.
it? To what we said at the beginning, that actually
Quality first.
we need that
Yeah.
quality first
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually, without those resources, you cannot teach the lesson, and the children will not retain.
No,
You know, they're not going
that's
to
right.
remember.
Yeah, and it's your responsibility as the adult, isn't it, to make sure that those resources are looked after as they should be, so
Yeah.
that then the next teacher who needs them after you can go and get them, and then on you go.
Yeah,
It all
definitely.
sort of unravels very quickly otherwise.
It does.
Doesn't it?
So obviously we need the resources for high quality teaching. We expect that for everybody. We know we've got more children coming in our schools with more complex additional needs, and staff who may not feel that they've got the skills to make sure that that child gets what they need to enable them to develop as they should. You know, they've got the same right to their education as every other child. We need to make sure that they're getting what they need. How are schools overcoming that barrier when they've got a child come in that's got a particular diagnosis that they're not really sure what the best way is for them? What do they do?
I think I'd always kind of signpost schools to make sure they go back to their programme resources and check what's in there. Most of the programmes now have
Yeah.
kind of like some Ascend programme,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, with that still shows that consistency, that fidelity to the programme. But it might just be that you're teaching the GPCs at a slower rate, or it might be done in a bespoke one-to-one session. So I'd always signal them back to those
Yeah, I think
resources.
more recently, more programs have provided that support with the understanding that, you know, we have children with really quite significant needs in mainstream that we may not have had before, and that there are ways to support these children in accessing it
And enable them to learn to read.
Absolutely. And there are different routes in, and it doesn't mean you've lost fidelity to the programme. It means that you're approaching that programme with some adaptations that support that child.
Yeah.
And actually,
They need what's additional and different to the other
Absolutely,
children, but
yeah.
still using the same resources. And I think that's a worry for schools, isn't it? That
Yeah.
if we do something different for this child, we're going to lose fidelity to the programme. So they don't want to deviate, and they follow exactly as
Yeah,
the mainstream
yeah.
programme is, and then realise it's not working for this child. And then we sometimes get the conversation, well, phonics doesn't work for this
Yeah.
child, so what do we do?
Yeah.
But knowing that actually as long as we've got the resources for your programme and we're following the sounds in the order that your programme progression says, we've still got that fidelity,
Yeah.
but you're doing the adaptations that are needed for that child.
And I think
Absolutely.
often when you look at the practice and what they are getting, it's not a case of phonics isn't working, it's a case of they're not getting enough. So
Yeah.
actually they
Repeated
need
practice.
that repeated practice. And actually if doing that, that it might be, with a child with high needs that they can't kind of regulate for longer than 5-10 minutes, but actually that 5-10 minutes isn't enough. So are they getting it again
Lots of
later in the
5-10
day? Are
minutes.
they getting it
Yeah.
again?
Yeah.
Is that 30-minute lesson split into
Yeah.
3 10-minute chunks over the day so that we
Yeah.
know they're getting the input that everybody
Absolutely.
else is getting?
Yeah, so but building on that, because that is, I think one of our schools calls it, not they don't say it to the children, but the moments to pounce. So say you have a child that does have that one-to-one because of their needs, they won't sit for 20 minutes and do that lesson, will they? So they will do it when the moment is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you have that adult, then you can do that. But then I think it does come back to the point you made right at the beginning about the quality first teaching for that child. So is that person trained, in the programme and how that looks for that child?
Yeah.
I saw somebody recently working with a child who had additional needs, quite significant, and she did a great job with him because from the outside you could almost call it disruptive, but it wasn't. It was how he was behaving in the moment because it was a lot for him. And he kept saying, I can't do that. And then she said, of course you can. And then he would come back. And at the end of it, I think maybe because I was sort of hovering, she was very pink and she sort of said, but actually it was brilliant. His phonics were really coming on. I mean, the data, his assessments would show that. So I think that repeated practice and those moments to pounce are about what we talked about at the very beginning of this, that quality first teaching, but for that individual. So in that moment, when it's right for them, are they getting some really good phonics? So is the adult that's with them trained to do this? I think you've said before, Gemma, have they got the flashcards on them? Have they got, because it is in the moment with a lot of children.
And whether that means getting some mini ones and having them around your lanyard so you absolutely know
Yeah.
you've got them with you.
Yeah, because it's just enough to go, this is a good moment, I'll go and get. And by the time you come back, the moment's gone.
Past.
But you need that relationship with the child as well, don't you, to know they're ready now. Let's jump in.
I was in a school last week and we walked in and there was a child doing their flashcards under the table because actually that's where that child felt comfortable. So the teaching assistant who was working with him was down there with him and doing the flashcards. And actually sometimes that's what it takes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Because actually we'd rather them do their flashcards under the table than not at all
do the
that
flashcards.
day.
So and there was
so it might not look like your 30-minute or 40-minute phonics session. It might look different to that.
Yeah.
And it might be several chunks across the day where we can squeeze those bits in to make sure they've got the full lesson that everybody else has.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're getting it at the right point.
Recently I saw a child being supported in class with his one-to-one in the main phonics session, but he was sat with his adult who he clearly had a very good relationship with, and everything she was doing was repeating what the teacher at the front was saying. And he could access that, but without her there doing that, he wouldn't be able to access that. It would be too hard for him. So everything that they were being asked to do from the front of the room, the adult with him, the TA with him kept doing, and then they would do it together. So they would sound together.
Yeah. So again, that comes back to your resources, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Having that extra set of flashcards,
Absolutely.
that extra set
Yeah.
of word cards.
Yeah, but that was his way of accessing the programme and still having that fidelity to it. So, those changes, those adaptations, where possible, are really worth considering, and talking to your reading lead, contacting us at the hub.
Yeah.
You
And I
know,
think
if you've
if
got
your
any queries.
programme's not got a separate SEN programme that they follow with planning, going back to them and saying, we've bought into your programme, we use your resources, can you help us? And they'd be more than willing to say, this is what we do, this is what we offer. And lots of programmes have got lots of videos now, haven't they, to show how children
Absolutely.
with different needs are accessing
Yeah.
the programme to make sure that they can still learn to read.
Yeah. And it's, the wider message hasn't always aligned with that, has it? These children probably, they can't access phonics. So again, it comes back to, well, is the phonics they're being given high quality? Is it that good quality? That's the start, isn't it? Maybe phonics hasn't worked for them because it wasn't great teaching of phonics.
Yeah.
So have a look at that, because we do know that phonics works, so well. You need to find that way in.
Yeah.
And programs really will support with that. now more than ever.
Yeah, and you're right, all the research shows that phonics is the way that all children are able to learn to read, whatever label they may have or whatever other needs they've got. Phonics is the way, and we need to get that message, I think, in schools more. I don't know about you, but I've been in schools where we've the Senko says I should do whole word reading. You're telling me this, we've got this mixed message, what do we do? So I think training for everybody is important, isn't it? To make sure we're all getting those most up-to-date messages of what works for children.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And then, you know, if you're having that coaching time to support your teachers and your adults so they are delivering it well, then you'll get the impact. Then people really will be on board with it.
And I think, I'm glad you mentioned that, Kath, because actually it's not just that coaching in lessons, it's getting in and checking what those interventions or those, you know, those adults that are working on a one-to-one basis with children, actually, let's see what that practice is looking like.
Absolutely.
And that's so important, isn't it? Because they are the most vulnerable children in school.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we're getting everything right for them.
Absolutely.
So that they can make the progress and keep up with the peers and their expectations.
And we might need to adapt how we go about that as well, perhaps as an LS or as a reading lead, because some children would really not cope with another adult watching. So I've been in this situation where I'm looking like I'm not watching, but I'm watching. You know, I look like I'm busy somewhere else in the library, but I'm just having a bit of a look. Can't jump in the moment in the same way, because that absolutely isn't something the child could cope with, but work with the adult immediately afterwards. You know, so rather than saying, oh, we couldn't possibly do that, actually, is there another way that we can do that that means everybody can cope and benefit from it? So
one school I worked with had set up a camera recording where they knew they were going to work and just left it running. And when the moment was right, they came to the table and were working, but the camera caught it. So then we could then sit, watch the recording, have a conversation about what was going on and do some coaching that way. But you're right, it's something for us and reading leads to think, how can we be creative to make sure that these children get what they need and we're not really distracting?
Reminded me of something, because there was a child in one of my hub schools that when I was there wouldn't speak a word, and then they, with permissions, all the correct permissions, they sent me a video, because the teacher said, I really want you to see that he's progressing, and she sent me a lovely video of him reading that he absolutely would not have done if I was there. So, you know, we have to understand that, don't we, and support schools and children in how that can be managed.
And the thing is, that's why we do this, isn't it? That's why we went into this, because actually it's for those moments, it's those wow moments. Oh, he's just started he's just started blending. He didn't know any of the sounds, and and actually it's those moments. It's all worthwhile, isn't it? So yes, it's hard work, and yes, timetables are tight and budgets are tight.
But what a difference!
That's what you're doing it for.
The value for the children, because we know children that can read are more successful in future, aren't they? So we need them to be able to read as they leave our schools.
And actually, you know, you were saying, Katie, about the additional needs that we have in schools now, and some children have really high level need. And part of the, you know, learning to read will unlock something for them that might not be there in other ways. So more than ever, the value of putting the time and effort into that is critical, really.
Yeah. And in terms of training, obviously we've talked about making sure that your adults are delivering high quality, but we need everyone to have that research knowledge. And one of the programmes we've all accessed as a hub and that we deliver is the Reading Ambition for All, making sure that children with more complex needs are able to learn to read. How has that influenced your knowledge, and how have you taken that into schools?
I think one of the biggest kind of barriers that we come across now, I think we're getting much better at kind of getting all that lowest 20% or those children that are on track and getting the majority of children through. But then what we hear often are that, but they're non-verbal. They're non-verbal, so they can't access phonics. And I think for me, straight away, I say, I think that was the brilliant thing with the programme, that it was all kind of research driven again.
Yeah. So we were talking about training and making sure that we've all got the right up-to-date knowledge to support these children. And obviously at the Hub we run the Reading Ambition for All programme, which is thinking about making sure children with more complex needs are able to learn to read. We've done that training as a team as well as facilitating it for our schools. What were the biggest takeaways for you, do you think, in the roles that you do from that training?
I think for me, I think the biggest turning point, I think in schools now, I think teachers are very aware of that lowest 20%, and there's that drive to try and get everyone, everyone reading. But I think what we find when we ask about, those children that might not pass the phonics screening check, or those children not on track, is that then you hear, they're non-verbal.
Oh, no, any HCP.
Yeah, they can't access phonics because, they're non-verbal. Seeing those Anne Sullivan videos, Anne Sullivan, as you know, is the, expert phonics teacher working with children with additional needs. But there are, if you've not seen them,
you've got
get on
YouTube.
That's what
look
I say.
at Anne's videos.
Get onto YouTube, type in Anne Sullivan blending, and it's amazing stuff. And I think that's how it's definitely helped me kind of support schools and actually go. So yes, they might not be able to talk, but actually, if they are exposed to those sounds and they hear those sounds,
we've got those non-verbal strategies,
and they see
the
grapheme, if you get those strategies into place, then actually, they can also read.
And that's what the programme did. It showed you what was possible.
Yeah.
Like, where it looked like it really might not be. And it's quite emotional, some of it, because I think the video you're thinking about, there's a child who's non-verbal. So, already limited in how they would communicate. But actually, to now be able to read when you couldn't, that's unlocked so much that just would have been shut off to that child. And when you think about that, it's quite overwhelming actually. But it's
huge
really,
for that child.
And I think that programme, well, it not only showed you what was possible and how we should really raise the bar, but also ways in which you could approach this. And it certainly supported me in my role as an English LS. I've got a school coming up that's asked me to look at their what's happening in their provision.
Right. Lots of schools have got their own little room,
and they
provision
want
for
to
children.
know that is that right for these children? Are we doing as much as we can be doing? So the fact that someone's asking that question, we've got a bit more, like a few more tools in our kit now, haven't we? And
I think that's brilliant that they're doing that, because I think that's the thing. I think sometimes we hear, no, they can't access phonics, but actually by doing that, that's what we're stopping happening. We're stopping those moments, like you say, where you've unlocked the child's ability to read. And that's what we need to make sure we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great programme. To get signed up for that.
So there's lots of challenges we've talked about there for schools, thinking about timetabling and staffing, funding for your resources, making sure that the children with additional needs are getting what they need. And it all comes back to how we started, I think, that quality first teaching that all children are entitled to, and making sure that that's in place. Well, thank you so much for joining me, both of you, today, for sharing your experiences. If joining the Reading Ambition for All programme is something that you think would benefit your school, please do have a look on our website. That's available to book. It would be lovely to see you there and hopefully develop your knowledge in supporting your children.